Welcome back to Listen, the podcast that takes a deep dive into all sorts of fascinating topics.
Yeah.
Today, we're diving into something that affects,
Mm.
I think, every single one of you listening.
Yeah.
The connection between
Right.
what you eat, your glucose levels,
Right.
and
Completely.
the amazing capabilities of your brain.
It's a connection we don't always think about.
Yeah.
We might notice we're a bit foggy after a giant plate of pasta,
Right.
or maybe get a little, shall we say, cranky when we're running on empty.
Oh, yeah.
But the science behind these everyday experiences, it's truly incredible.
It really is.
Yeah.
So let's start with that brain fog feeling.
Okay.
You know, when your thinking feels sluggish,
Right.
like you're trying to run through mud.
Yeah.
Have you ever noticed how that seems to hit after certain meals?
What's fascinating is that researchers have actually found that what you eat for breakfast,
Interesting.
for example, can impact how well your brain performs for the rest of the day.
Oh, wow.
They found that a sugary breakfast,
Ta-da.
the kind that sends your glucose levels soaring,
Yeah.
actually leads to worse memory focus and overall cognitive function
Really?
compared to a breakfast that helps keep your glucose steady.
So maybe those sugary cereals aren't the best way to kickstart your brain power. What's going on in our brains when we experience those glucose spikes?
Well, think of it this way.
Okay.
Your brain cells, called neurons, communicate with each other through electrical and chemical signals.
Mm-hmm.
And these signals need to travel quickly for your brain to work efficiently.
Right.
But when your glucose levels are fluctuating wildly, it actually slows down the speed at which these signals can travel.
Wait, you're saying my brain literally slows down when my glucose is out of whack?
It is pretty wild.
That's a little freaky.
They call this slower speed nerve conduction velocity.
Okay.
When it's impaired,
Mm-hmm.
you're more likely to have trouble with things like memory concentration and making decisions. It's like your brain is stuck in the slow lane.
Okay, so steady glucose equals a sharper, faster brain. I'm definitely starting to see why this is so important.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's not just about thinking clearly, is it?
Right.
There's also that whole mood connection.
Absolutely.
We all know how a drop in blood sugar can turn someone into, well, let's just say, not their best self.
And there's this study that perfectly illustrates this link.
Okay.
Although I'll admit it's a bit quirky.
Uh-huh.
It involves married couples and voodoo dolls.
Voodoo doll.
Yeah.
Okay, you've got my attention.
So tell me more.
Researchers gave each person in a couple a voodoo doll that represented their partner.
Okay.
Then they asked them to stick pins in the doll
Oh my gosh.
every time their spouse annoyed them over a few weeks.
I'm just imagining the conversation.
Yeah.
Honey, it's for science. Can you stab this tiny version of me whenever I get on your nerves?
But here's the really interesting part.
Okay.
They also monitored everyone's glucose levels throughout the study.
Uh-huh.
What they found was that the people who had more stable glucose levels,
Without those dramatic spikes and crashes, actually struck fewer pins in the voodoo dolls.
so less glucose drama, happier marriage.
Exactly.
That's a pretty good argument for keeping things balanced.
On the flip side,
Yeah,
the people who had those dips in blood sugar,
right.
often after a big spike, were far more likely to go to town on those voodoo dolls.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah.
We've all felt that hangry feeling
Yeah.
where you're just irritable and on edge because you need to eat.
Right.
I'm all too familiar with that one.
And it's not just anecdotal.
Okay.
Scientists believe that link between glucose and irritability might have to do with how glucose affects certain brain chemicals called neurotransmitters, specifically ones that play a big role in mood regulation.
So those sugar crashes could be messing with our brain chemistry,
Yeah.
making us more likely to snap at people.
Right.
So that's definitely something to keep in mind.
Mhm.
This is all making me rethink my snacking habits already.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, you know, I want to shift gears for a moment
Yep.
and to talk about something a bit more serious,
Mm-hmm.
the connection between glucose and mental health.
Right.
This is actually a topic that's very personal to me.
Oh.
I struggled with some mental health issues for a long time,
Yeah.
and getting my glucose levels stable was a huge part of my journey to feeling better.
It's really powerful that you share that. It's true, while mental health is complex, there's growing evidence that glucose spikes.
Okay.
Inflammation in the body and conditions like anxiety and depression are all interconnected.
It's amazing to think about. We tend to separate mental and physical health,
Yeah,
but they really are so interwoven.
absolutely.
Yeah.
There was this one study that followed a group of people for over 9 years.
Wow.
They were all free of mental health issues and something called insulin resistance at the beginning of the study.
Huh.
And over that time,
Yeah.
the researchers found that those who developed insulin resistance, which often happens from constantly spiking your glucose levels, had an 89% higher risk of developing major depression.
Wow, 89%. That's a huge increase in risk.
It is.
It really shows how crucial it is to take care of our metabolic health,
Right.
including managing our glucose, if we want to support our mental well-being.
It's definitely not a simple fix.
Yeah.
But it can create a more stable foundation for approaching mental health.
This is all giving me so much to think about. And to think we've only just scratched the surface.
There's still so much more to explore.
Okay.
And that brings us to a particularly fascinating area.
Okay.
The connection between glucose and Alzheimer's disease.
Okay.
Have you ever heard of the term type 3 diabetes?
Type 3 diabetes? No, that's a new one for me.
Yeah.
It sounds a little ominous, to be honest.
It is a newer term, and it sparked a lot of discussion.
Okay.
It essentially refers to the idea that the brains of people with Alzheimer's often show signs of insulin resistance, inflammation, and even a buildup of certain compounds, similar to what happens in type 2 diabetes.
So their brains are almost experiencing a form of diabetes.
It is.
That's a pretty radical concept.
And there's research to back it up.
Okay.
One study followed over 3,200 people for an incredible 38 years. And found a significant link between higher glucose levels in midlife and a greater risk of developing Alzheimer's later on.
38 years. That's some serious dedication to research.
Yeah.
But wow, so what we eat and how we manage our glucose when we're younger could have implications for our brain health.
Exactly.
Decades down the road. That's both sobering and empowering at the same time.
Well, genes definitely play a role.
Right.
The choices we make about our lifestyle, especially managing those glucose levels, can potentially have a big impact on our long-term brain health.
Okay. That's a lot to process. It's heavy stuff. But honestly, it's also incredibly motivating.
It is.
To think we might have some control over our brain's destiny is pretty amazing.
It really is.
Yeah.
And it leads us to the question of what we can actually do to support our brain health by managing our glucose levels.
Okay.
Luckily, there are some pretty simple, practical steps we can take.
I'm ready.
Small changes can have a surprisingly big impact.
Okay.
And to help you get started,
Yeah.
I'd like to share 4 of my favorite glucose hacks.
Okay.
These are specifically for giving your brain power a boost.
I'm all ears. Let's say goodbye to brain fog and hello to those brilliant aha moments.
First up, let's rethink breakfast.
Okay.
Remember that study we talked about earlier, the one about how breakfast affects cognitive function? Well, instead of reaching for sugary cereals or those tempting pastries, try going for a savory breakfast.
So ditch the donuts and grab some eggs instead.
Exactly. Think eggs, avocado, toast, a protein smoothie.
Okay.
Anything that'll give you sustained energy without sending your glucose on a roller coaster ride.
Got it. So what's the next brain-boosting hack?
Become best friends with fiber.
Okay.
And I especially recommend embracing the veggie starter. Before you dig into your main meal, whether it's lunch or dinner, start with a good serving of vegetables.
Why veggies first? What makes that so special?
Well, fiber acts like a buffer in your digestive system.
Okay.
It slows down how quickly your body absorbs glucose from the rest of your meal.
Okay.
That helps prevent those sharp spikes in glucose and keeps your energy levels more stable.
That's pretty clever. It's like giving your body a heads up that a delicious meal is coming, but without that crazy energy roller coaster.
Exactly. Now, this next one might be tough for those of you with a sweet tooth.
Oh, no.
But trust me, it's worth it. Never, and I mean never, eat sugar on an empty stomach.
Ooh. That's a tough one. But I have a feeling there's a good reason for this rule.
There is.
Okay.
You see, when you eat sugar on an empty stomach, there's nothing to slow down its absorption. It goes straight into your bloodstream, causing a rapid spike in glucose.
Yeah.
And those spikes, as we've discussed, are the culprits behind brain fog, irritability, and even long-term health issues.
So let me get this straight. If I absolutely have to have that piece of chocolate cake, it's better to have it with a meal.
You got it.
Rather than as an afternoon pick-me-up when my stomach is rumbling.
Enjoying it after a balanced meal helps minimize the glucose spike.
Okay.
Making it a much more brain-friendly treat.
That's a compromise I can live with. What's the 4th hack you wanted to share?
Last but definitely not least.
Okay.
Make sure to move your body after you eat. Even just 10 minutes of movement can make a difference.
So a walk after dinner is a good idea. I can manage that.
Absolutely, when you use your muscles.
Yeah.
They actually help pull glucose out of your bloodstream.
Oh, wow.
Helping to regulate those post-meal levels.
So it's not just about burning calories, it's about actively helping our bodies manage glucose. I love that. What kind of movement is best?
Honestly, anything that gets your muscles working will do the trick.
Okay.
You can walk, dance, do some stretching, even light gardening.
I'm feeling inspired to take a dance break after we finish recording.
Yeah.
This is all such valuable information. Are there other hacks you haven't shared?
There are.
Okay.
We've only scratched the surface with these 4.
Right.
There are 6 more glucose hacks that we dive into in our free PDF,
Okay.
packed with even more science-backed tips for getting those glucose levels in check.
Awesome.
You can find the link to download it in the show notes.
Amazing. I'm definitely going to be checking that out. This whole deep dive has been eye-opening. It really makes you realize just how much power we have over how our brains function.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've all felt that brain fog, that irritability,
Right.
those moments where we're just not feeling our best.
Mm-hmm.
And now we know that glucose might be playing a role.
It's like we've been given this new understanding of how our bodies and brains work.
Right.
And the exciting part is that we can actually do something about it. We don't have to just sit back and accept those feelings.
So what would you say is the biggest takeaway for our listeners?
Mm-hmm.
What do we really want them to walk away with today?
I think the most important message is what we eat has a huge impact on our brains, both right now and in the long run.
Okay.
Those little glucose spikes and dips that we might not even notice can affect our mood, even our relationships with the people around us.
Yeah.
And over time, they can contribute to bigger issues like mental health conditions and cognitive decline.
It really highlights how food is so much more than just fuel.
Exactly.
It's information that our bodies use to function at their best.
And when we understand how glucose works,
Mm-hmm.
we can make choices that support our brains, helping us think more clearly, feel more balanced, and maybe even protect our cognitive health for years to come.
I don't know about you, but I'm feeling both inspired and a little bit hungry after all this talk about food and the brain.
Me too. And for anyone listening who's feeling inspired to make a change,
Yeah.
remember that even one small step can make a difference.
Okay.
Try swapping out that sugary breakfast for a savory one.
Right.
Add a veggie starter to your next meal. Or take a 10-minute walk after dinner.
Okay.
Pay attention to how you feel, and you might be surprised at the difference it makes to your energy, focus, and mood.
That's such great advice.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
not about being perfect.
Exactly.
It's about finding what works for you and making those gradual, sustainable changes.
And as you start to experience the benefits of having more balanced glucose levels, you might find yourself naturally drawn to healthier choices.
Right.
It creates a positive cycle.
I love that. And before we wrap up, I want to leave our listeners with something to think about.
Okay, I'm all yours.
What if you could change how you experience the world, your relationships, even your sense of self, just by becoming more aware of your glucose levels?
Yeah.
It's a big question, but one that I think is worth pondering.
It is. And as you explore this connection between food glucose and your brain,
Yeah.
remember that knowledge is power. The more you understand, the more you can take charge of your health and create a life that feels vibrant, focused, and truly fulfilling.
That's a beautiful way to put it. Well, that's all the time we have for this deep dive into the fascinating world of glucose and brain health.
Yeah.
We hope you found it insightful, empowering, and maybe even a little bit delicious.
Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and take good care of your amazing brain.